All right, good afternoon. This is Zach Tart covering Crown Crafts, stock ticker CRWS. Crown Crafts is a maker of baby products, bibs, high chairs, pacifiers, the works, uh, food cloths, etc., out of Louisiana. Um, given that they are a retail product producer, I guess you would say, Um, inventory is a big thing, and also want to see how efficiency they were operating from a cash conversion point of view. So we'll talk about that, and also just sort of the management effectiveness and just the health of the company altogether. So here we are. We're looking at the the income statement. Over the last 5 years, revenues have been roughly stable, but the last year with the Amazon effect and and consumer spending on baby items have decreased. Some conclusions may be that people just aren't having babies as fast and as young as they used to, but margins remain roughly stable, with SG&A not changing hardly any and maybe getting a little leaner over time. And so because of that, earnings per share have been roughly stable, with a bit of a dip in the near term over the last year. The balance sheet, the company is pretty liquid. Um, we're looking at about $8 million in cash, and I didn't really notice any receivable issues. I did notice that the company had protected their receivables from credit issues by using factoring, which is basically selling their accounts receivable to companies that will pay for them, and that allows that company to bear the risk of any credit issues that the customer or that Crown's customers might exhibit. The company tends to avoid long-term debt, and so we see only 1 million in long-term liabilities at all, with most of the liabilities coming in the short term and those that are operating. The company doesn't really do anything crazy, no derivatives or any kind of wild lending or anything like that. They're just a pretty plain Jane manufacturing of baby products. And so because of that, the company hasn't grown a whole lot, but they tend to pay out their earnings in special dividends when times are good. So that can be attractive if you're into the income side of things. Let's see here. So the company's not very leveraged, and that leads to pretty stable operating characteristics. So given that there's not a lot of capital intensity, I guess you would say, there's the intensiveness of use of capital isn't very heavy here. So pretty much the gross margins and net the operating margins rather go straight to cash flows. So we see that there's not a huge differential in cash flow than operating income. So 9 million and 11 million over the last 2 years respectively. And so looking at cash flows, 10 million and 11 million, so pretty much the same. Not a lot of reading through not a lot of deciphering there from a cash flow perspective. What you see is what you get for their earnings. So I would say that the quality is pretty high, all else equal. Not a lot of debt issued. We do see that the company has paid dividends in the last pretty significant dividends in the last 3 years. Almost all of cash flow last year and or cash earned last year, and about 30, close to 25-30% years before. And also, it looks like the management team, given that they're paying dividends at a significant clip, and also the fact that there isn't much capex occurring, it looks like the company doesn't see growth opportunities, which could be concerning if you're worried about the going concern, or the company being continuing to be a going concern. But it could be attractive also if from a capital management, capital allocation perspective, it looks like the company's not really wasting money on unnecessary projects. So just a few things to wrap up here. We've got a bunch of key ratios that we've compiled, but I did want to look at the efficiency aspect and management performance. So we'll go out here to a chart I've got. So cash conversion cycle, basically the amount of days it takes for the company to take its cash, buy inventory, sell the inventory, and collect on it through accounts receivable. So we can see over time that the cash conversion cycle has risen, and the days to inventory have been a key player in that. So the company isn't turning over its inventory as fast as it possibly once was, and that could be due to a number of things. We talked about trends with people having babies these days, and maybe consumers just aren't willing to spend like they used to, or maybe they're finding other alternatives to the products that Crown Crafts makes. So the cash conversion cycle is namely or predominantly as a result of the inventory turnover in this case, and we do see some rising trends with over the short term with sales outstanding, but not really, and then a little bit of a dip in 2015, and then through 16 and 17 an increase in payables, which isn't overly concerning, but the inventory turnover is. So profitability, we talked about earlier how revenues had declined over the short term, but margins had remained roughly stable due to the company being lean, not a lot of frivolous spending there, and the management team seems to keep a check on unnecessary compensation. And then so we see because the company's not leveraged at all, return on assets has been remained roughly steady over time, along with return on equity. So the business isn't very volatile, but return on assets moves in line with return on equity. And because the company doesn't have much debt at all, interest coverage is super high anyway. So that's Crown Crafts, maker of baby products, and I'll conclude it there, a little bit over time, but thank you for the course, and have a nice summer. Bye. Or a nice winter rather. Take care.